You applied to 13 medical schools. 12 said no. The University of Virginia said yes.
Thank goodness.
You talk often about your being a C student, a D student, and all that. Now, at 32, you discover you're dyslexic. How did you get into the University of Virginia?
I think that they were very benevolent. I don't know why they took me, to be perfectly honest with you, but I'm awfully glad they did, and they treated me very well. They gave me a great education, and I'm eternally appreciative.
But what does that say, though, about you've gone on to run the Cleveland Clinic, one of the biggest hospitals in the world? How many patients do you see a year? Not you, but the clinic.
We see multiple millions.
And you did 22,000 operations as a cardiologist. Mm-hmm. Go back to the education part of this. Why did those 12 turn you down? And
well, because I, you know, frankly, I went to Williams College, and I was not a great student at Williams College. In fact, I frequently tell the story about taking French. I never heard a word of French spoken in my life when I went to college, and so I thought, well, heck, I better learn about speaking French, a language. Well, I found out that I couldn't do French at all. First day I walked in, and everybody was saying oui, oui, and I looked up and down the page for W-E, W-E, and couldn't find it anyplace. It turns out that I had 4 semesters of remedial French and 3 D minuses and a D. And so I was not a great student. I worked very hard, but the amount of reading and languages that I had to do in college really were difficult. So I'm not surprised that most medical schools didn't take me. Now, I think the interesting thing is going back and looking at this now, understanding that I am dyslexic, I realized that dyslexia was really a gift, because I think about things differently. I look at things differently. And also it taught me tremendous persistence. And if you look at the writings on dyslexia now, a person by the name of Sally Shaywitz at Yale, a professor there, is probably the expert on dyslexia. Sally will say that she finds that dyslexic people are more creative because they think differently than other people do. I've seen that thing in myself and in my family.
What's the first thing that tells you you're a dyslexic, and why did it take till you were 32 years old to find out?
Well, I never heard the word before until I was that age, and people didn't recognize it as particularly as a defect or a learning disability at that point, so I just thought I was not very quick.
How do you know? I mean, what is it that you see that we don't see?
Well, you know, I can't tell you that, but you know, I've wound up developing a bunch of products, and I have a whole bunch of patents that came out of the results of that, and I gather that I must think about things differently than other people do to do that. And you know, I have got a daughter who's dyslexic, and she is the same way. She's now become a fashion designer, following a difficult academic career from age 4 all the way through college.
But I mean, if you're reading a book versus doing an operation, is there 2 different experiences?
Oh yeah, painful to read, very painful to read. I don't think I've ever read a novel.
How do you read reports? How did you?
I work at it. It's work. I have to go up and settle down and find a quiet place where there's no distraction, and concentrate, take notes, write in the margins, go back and reread it slowly. It's very painful.
But getting back to education, you know what the system is. You take the SAT test, you have to get good grades and all that. Is there something wrong with that?
Well, yeah, we really have to think about letting people who have that diagnosis have extra time, because they're not dumb, they're just slow. And have extra time on time tests, and a lot of the reading can be changed into tapes. So there's a lot of accommodations that can be made for people who are dyslexic. And frankly, I've been involved with Chuck Schwab, for example, is also dyslexic. he and I have talked to a bunch of the admissions people in colleges about allowing people to have timed tests and letting people who are dyslexic come in, because they can be very productive members of society.
Go back to the Obamacare issue. I want to run this from 2009 with our now president talking about this whole business.
The reason I visited the Cleveland Clinic is because, along with the Mayo Clinic, they have been able to drive down costs more than any other healthcare system out there while maintaining some of the highest quality. Now, when I asked, how did you go about doing it? Well, they started this thing. When was it started? Cleveland Clinic? 1921. And what they've done is, for example, doctors who are part of the Cleveland Clinic get paid a salary instead of being paid fee for service. So that makes it easier for them to make some of these changes, because people don't feel like maybe they're losing some money out of pocket. They just know that they're getting a salary.
Should everybody else do what you've done? I'll get rid of the tenure, pay the salary, not fee for service.
Well, I think increasingly we're starting to see that happen. It's interesting how this is coming about. We're seeing now a consolidation in healthcare. We're seeing hospitals come together in systems. We're also seeing now doctors want to be salaried. 60% of the doctors in the United States now are salaried. And if you look at the people graduating from medical school, they would prefer to be salaried rather than going out and being self-employed. So it's a major shift. So people are coming closer and closer to our model of care, where you work with the hospital or for the hospital. We have a slight difference. We're a group practice that has facilities. And the other is a hospital that employs physicians. That's a subtle difference, but an important difference for us.
How many buildings do you have on the Cleveland campus?
Oh gosh, we have 160 acres on the main campus and probably 60, 70 buildings.
Again, how many doctors?
3,200 physicians.
And how do you hire them based on what you just talked about, not getting in 12 medical schools? How do you approach? I mean, only the Harvard doctors getting in?
Oh, no. We look for physicians. First of all, let me say that Cleveland, coming to work in Cleveland is a great filter, because people aren't coming to Cleveland to go to the beach or go skiing. They're coming to Cleveland because they're interested in working there. And that's a great filter. And so people are coming there because they want to work, and they want to work in the sort of system that we have. So that's a terrific opportunity for us, and we look for people who are really concentrating and driven and about deriving great health care and great quality. They're probably not going to get paid as much as they can make other places. In fact, just to give you an example of that, when I started out, I was doing about 500 heart operations a year, and I was getting paid $50,000 or $60,000. 2 years after I'd been there, I was offered another job to go work and make $1 million. I stayed at the Cleveland Clinic because I liked that environment and the teamwork that went with it.
How many doctors were there at the Cleveland Clinic when you started?
There were 140 doctors when I came to the Cleveland Clinic. It's grown a little.
And how many of your patients are from Ohio?
Well, we draw most of our patients from a 6-county area around it. About 80% of our patients come from the 6-county area around that, and then the rest of them from about a 5-state area around that. But we have people from all over the United States. About less than 1% come from overseas.
I read that 132 different nations have shipped people to your clinic. How do you deal with that? Who can come?
Anybody can come. We look after is the largest number of Medicaid patients in the state of Ohio, and we take everybody.
So, the lawyers, meanwhile, are getting $1,000 an hour in this town. Their rates keep going up. They're not on salary. And you have something called malpractice. How much of that $6 billion a year that you gross goes to malpractice insurance?
Our malpractice costs last year were about $50 million.
Up, down, compared to the past?
Actually, they've been coming down. We've worked very hard at bringing them down. We've done several things to bring them down. One of the things we did is we said, look, when we have a problem and we know we've had a problem with a patient, we go to them and say, you know, we had a problem. And we're really sorry about whatever had happened. But we'll do everything we can to make it right, but we want to be straightforward with you. The second thing we did is we opened up the medical record for everybody. About 5 years ago, we said, this is not Cleveland Clinic's record, this is your record. So you can read it anytime you want. And we sign everybody up for their electronic medical record when they come for visits because we want them engaged. And if you take away the secrecy of what's going on, and if you take away the fact that you might be hiding something, it really it does begin to decrease the number of lawsuits that you have.
Have any idea how many doctors you've hired over the years?
Me personally?
Yeah.
Gee, I was responsible mostly for hiring the physicians that worked in cardiac surgery when I was running it, and probably over time I must have hired 30 just on the staff. And then there were all the residents and fellows who came to work there, and those were in the hundreds. We have, for example, about 1,800 residents and fellows in training at any one time. So we're a very large education organization.
So as somebody comes in front of you, what's your own criteria about whether or not you hire somebody?
Well, I think you look for a number of things. First of all, I think you have to find someone who you think has had the training. They have the dedication to what they want to do, and I think interpersonal communication capabilities are a big part of that, emotional intelligence.
How often do you look at their grade point average?
Almost never.
Why?
Because by the time they come to us to be hired, they've gone from college and medical school, and now they've gone through coming into a residency. So I look, they're generally the ones that are applying to us are top portion of their class, and I don't really care whether they're number 1 or number 15 or 20, but we get top applicants, so I don't go to that.
Based on what you know now, if you're predicting what the